So I just want to be clear. There's a lot that took place specifically in Dallas County. I'm sure you've been watching the returns, and none of the returns out of Dallas County are quite in yet. Dallas County should have the second largest voter participation of any county in this state. We don't have any of the results because there was a lot of confusion today. And so, you know, our Democratic Party chair, Cardall Coleman, he beat me to the punch, as myself and Colin Allred. We're about to file a lawsuit to keep the voting polls open. We were able to keep the polls open, but I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails. The polls were supposed to stay open until 9, according to a court order. The Supreme Court, just a few minutes ago, just said, shut it down. The Supreme Court also said that they are to separate any votes out that came in after 7 p.m. So here's the deal. I have no idea how it is that clerks are going to know who was in line by what time, because the rule is that if you're in line by 7, then you get to vote. And so once there was a court order saying you had until 9, I'm sure that there were people that joined the line after 7. They now are telling them that you have to separate the votes out. What this means is that we will not know what votes are to be tallied from Election Day out of Dallas County. For sure, we won't know that tonight. So knowing that Dallas County is a big dump of votes, we, in my opinion, will not know the election results overall tonight. We need to see the Dallas County votes to see where they are. I mean, if the early vote comes in, which we may have the early vote soon, if it comes in and I'm losing Dallas County, then we know kind of where this thing is going. So, so that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're gonna get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow. So I love y'all too.
Where I live is far away, and I just wanted to vote here and get back to work, and she told me she wouldn't let me. I was hoping she'll just let me go in. She said I'm at the wrong place. I can't vote here.
I've always voted here, say, 8 years in a row now. I've come to this location, but now they're telling me that I need to go to another location to vote.
They explain why?
No, they didn't explain why. And then when I went online yesterday, because I knew they were going to try to do this, I went yesterday online to register and everything like that to find out where my poll is, and it got me nowhere.
Place where I live is far away, and I just wanted to vote here and get.
Good morning and welcome to Black Press USA's morning show, where we bring you the headlines and the culture. And that's probably one of the biggest headlines coming out of our community is what happened in Texas. Of course, we know that there were elections happening in Arkansas and the Carolinas, but the one we were paying attention to was what was happening in Texas. And, you know, we'll just get into it. Jasmine Crockett, she's lost her primary for U.S. Senate. And she was explaining it to us there about how, you know, the lower court said, keep the polls open till 9 o'clock. Supreme Court said no. And, you know, we don't want to say, take a deep breath. I don't want to say it, but there's been a lot of things happening with our elections. The voting machines, in particular, who has purchased them. Donald Trump winning, and there's still a question if Kamala Harris actually won the election. So I think that we shouldn't be afraid to question elections and the system in this country right now, because we know that there's a cheater in office, and they have perfected, some would say, how to quietly cheat and how to loudly be rude. And so, to Jasmine Crockett's points about how do you know who was there before 7 or after 7 or after, how do you know? In the I see the chat saying, voter suppression at its best. Orangey said, don't be afraid to say it. Cheating was involved. At this point in America, I don't care if the Republican wins in Texas. Tallarico, it's just another white man. We were talking yesterday to Mr. Justin about aging Black in America, and we were talking about how the system is already corrupt and messed up. I mean, at this point, what does it matter? Because he's not going to go in there and be a Jasmine Crockett if he was to win. So the chat is chatting. Let's see what you guys are saying. Good morning, Sandra Brown. David Youngblood is saying, what happened to Jasmine is no way surprising. Orange G says, when will the Democrats admit they have a problem with electing Black women into office? What happened to Jasmine Crockett in Texas last night is another reason why I left that party in 2012. I mean, Nagin says voter suppression at its best. Pure Joy says, are any racists famous for showing up late? Stuart Gorham says, you lost, get over it. So the chat is chatting. David Youngblood says, folks, it is as it has always been. That skin. Sandra Brown says, vote early. So the chat is chatting, and I see Lauren, you popped in. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing? How are you?
Finding you. Thanks for joining in. So we were talking about what happened in Texas. We're going to get to our poll, everybody. We're going to get to it, but this is the top story. We're talking about Jasmine Crockett losing the primary. I believe that she is going to push, though, to get the final tally of the votes. But what's your response?
Well, my response is we learned a lot from last night. We learned a lot already from this race, chiefly in my view, about white Democrats and what their general tolerance level is for anybody who is Black and who has a lot of personality and has sort of a more direct form of communication. At the end of the day, they want a white Democrat who does a lot of the things that we've already seen in the vein of Joe Manchin and John Fetterman. Obviously, Tallarico is not Fetterman. He's way better than that. But then again, who isn't? The point, though, is that it's really hard to get white Democrats to have full buy-in on the type of candidate that Jasmine Crockett was. And that means a Black woman. That means somebody who, as they say, puts it where the goats can get it. Somebody who is a national star, somebody who gets a lot of attention. There's been a lot of whining about Jasmine Crockett, that she didn't form relationships on Capitol Hill, and she doesn't talk to the media, and she doesn't do this, and she doesn't do that. Yeah, and so when somebody else brings that brand, I hear less whining from white Democrats, and particularly, I'd love for them to direct some of this energy, for example, toward Donald Trump. Okay, it's like really, to me, the Senator Louise Lucases of the world and the Jasmine Crockett's of the world are basically the flip side of Trump in a lot of ways. Of course, without all the illegal activity and ridiculous, crazy lying and stupid behavior, but still that very aggressive style, with all the Democrats whining that they want something more aggressive, and they want Democrats to fight. When it actually shows up and happens, they don't necessarily support it.
For sure. One of the second video we played with some of the voters having problems with their polling places. I mean, I know here in California, we've adopted voting centers and moved away from polling places, meaning that you can go to any voting center and vote. You don't have to live in the district anymore. At first, we were a little hesitant, but it has become very user friendly. Because I don't have to worry about if I'm on the west side of town and I need to go vote, I can go vote there and I don't have to ask for a provisional ballot. I'm in the system. And so, I think that's something that can easily fix problems like this. But I don't see that happening in Texas anytime soon.
No,
they like to
Texas
have the control.
Oh, absolutely. And they like to have the confusion. Texas is going to Texas. And basically what happened there was, oh, what a coincidence. All of this confusion happens to happen in the base city of Jasmine Crockett of Dallas. What of all the places in the big state of Texas, it all just happens to be confusing in Dallas. Wow, what a coincidence. And so it was good that her and former Congressman Allred were out there trying to talk about lawsuits. And it was good that a judge acted quickly. And of course, the Texas Supreme Court acted quickly as well to try to make it seem like there was something wrong. Voting hours are extended all the time.
Right.
But, these things are intentional. Texas is a minority majority state. The biggest group in Texas is Hispanics. That's the other thing we learned last night. All this talk of minority voters, we're always sort of lumped in with Hispanics. Why? They're not voting for our candidates. Like, what are we doing? Because they have different issue sets and always have. But for the standards of American life, people who have some melanin in their skin are all the same. So it's like we're all, lumped together with Hispanics, and their views on things are completely different, as again we found out last night. But at any rate, the Dallas thing, so predictable. It really is a pregame warning for the November elections and all the other primaries this year.
Another race that individuals were paying attention to was Al Green, who, and all of this is due to the redistricting, right? Kind of forced her, it moved her district around. It moved Al Green's district around. So Al Green is headed to a runoff against Christian Menifee. So he's still holding the line. And he may be able to maintain his position in Congress, hopefully so. For some. And then interesting, Reverend Freddie Haynes wins his primary for Texas 30th Congressional District, which would have been the district that Jasmine Crockett would have probably ran in if she would have stayed in the House. And so just a mixing of things. And what are your responses to those two races?
Well, again, just like you just said, this entire thing happened because of Donald Trump signaling to the Texas Republicans to change the districts, the congressional districts in Texas. You then dismantle, annoy, and put out of power 4 Black people. Okay, but Mark Veazey might end up as a judge in Tarrant, which would be huge. I think he's got a runoff now. Al Green now suddenly has a runoff. Jasmine Crockett loses her seat because of the switch. And that's what that was all about. That's what the entire moment was about. It's not a coincidence that 4 Black people happen to be 4 Black seats happen to be dismantled and thrown up into the air. They hate Al Green and they hate Jasmine Crockett for obvious reasons, because Jasmine Crockett has an amazing talent for making Trump administration officials look stupid in public at hearings. And of course, Al Green has the guts to get out and speak out against the president and offer impeachment proceedings every 20 minutes, which nobody else is doing. And so they hate these Black Democrats. It's about dismantling Black power. So that's what we saw. And yes, we do have Freddie Haynes, though. So Freddie Haynes is very highly likely to be a member of Congress. You already see the building criticism online with regard to Israel policy, which that's starting to flip. You can see that there was a poll Gallup did that shows that younger voters are tired and sick and tired of AIPAC, sick and tired of Israeli policy, sick and tired of the entire thing. And now we have a war in Iran, and they're going to be even more sick and tired. So there's going to be a change, I think, in the attitudes with regard to AIPAC. But AIPAC is not going to stop trying to keep people like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman out of Congress.
Speaking of Israel, the U.S. and Israel have intensified strikes in the Middle East, with reports of fresh dawn strikes in Beirut. Now, with the U.S. State Department, they're urging Americans to evacuate in 15 countries but no real path home or no embassy support. Take a look at this.
It's the message. It's loud and clear. We just got this message here in Israel from the embassy. It reads, I'm quoting here, the U.S. Embassy is not in a position at this time to evacuate or directly assist Americans in departing Israel. Those are the words from the ambassador, Mike Huckabee, and frankly, they're consistent with what Americans are hearing across this region. You know, we all were alerted in 14 countries last night to leave immediately. People were told on their own using commercial options, which is simply an incredible irony, given that in almost all of the countries listed, there are no commercial options to leave right now. And in fact, in 6 of them, there isn't even a confirmed sitting U.S. ambassador, including in Saudi Arabia, where the massively fortified embassy has been hit. It's a stunning situation. And I was struck by the words of the general who's currently stuck in Dubai. He formerly commanded the base in Kuwait, such an important base. I've been through there on my way to Afghanistan to report a story. And he was simply shocked by the situation, saying,
it's a little bit disheartening and a little bit envious to hear that the BBC has announced that the UK government is actually arranging transport for the British citizens to be able to extract them, whereas here for us as Americans, we feel abandoned. The State Departments, I've talked to 2 embassy personnel, 2 different embassies. They are in survival mode, quite frankly, because as we know, the administration reduced their budgets by almost 1/2.
His words are sobering. We can't help you. It's the message. It's loud.
We can't help you is the message. And so, I mean, we see that they have redistrict, Black leadership out, voter suppression. And then in foreign affairs, we don't have ambassadors. We have people stuck. I mean, what's your response to that, Lauren?
My response is the Trump administration has absolutely no idea what it's doing. I mean, they're following what Benjamin Netanyahu wants them to do. And that's what Trump is doing. Now they're trying to cover up that that's what they're doing. Everybody knows that there was not going to be any preemptive threat on the United States coming from Iran. Their missiles cannot reach over here. We're not walking around every day worrying about Iran in the streets of America. This was all because Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to do it, and Trump is reacting to Benjamin Netanyahu wanting to do something. Netanyahu has been here over and over and over again at the White House. Clearly, they're talking about something. He's wanted to attack Iran for years. He's been complaining that they're going to build a nuclear device, which, by the way, they can't and don't have. The only country in that region that has a nuclear device is Israel. I mean, so this idea that somehow we were under some threat, and there was a briefing yesterday. I was outside of it with a ton of other people, journalists and otherwise, by Marco Rubio, who can't explain this, which is why he was at the mic for 30 minutes before the briefing. The 2 senators I was paying attention to are from Virginia, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. They come out of the briefing completely unimpressed. There was no reason for this. And now everybody's going to sit back and ask the question on the right and left, as we find 6 service members who are already dead. Why are we doing this? Why are billions of our tax money going overseas for this? Why can't we do things like healthcare and affordable housing, but we can send billions of dollars overseas to projects such as this? And nobody in that White House right now can answer that question. It's fascinating to watch people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the racist Nick Fuentes, complaining, and the other racist, what's his name, Tucker Carlson, complaining about this every second that they can get, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And with all of that conversation, the American people are still stranded, and they don't have an embassy to call. Marco Rubio tells you to call this number, and then the number tells you we can't do anything for you.
Right.
And so, with all of these conversations, it seems like it's the American people that are suffering because of this. I know that there was a Destiny Littleton who plays, she's a basketball player. She was stuck in Iran. I was following her over the weekend. Her and the other basketball players had to go to the shelter. Don Staley jumped in. So she's moving through these different countries to get away, but she still can't fly out because it's a no-fly zone. And so, with all of these conversations, it's astonishing. Like, if we just go all the way back to Texas, and we look at the leadership that's presented to you, and people just still don't get it. They still don't get it.
No, they don't. And John Carl had a really funny, wasn't really that funny, of course, video of calling that number that Marco Rubio said to call the embassy for Americans to get out. And it leads to a voicemail, and then there's no instructions, and then says go to a website. You got to be kidding me. So clearly this was not planned very well. I don't think it was a coincidence that this landed right on the week that we had new news coming out on the Epstein files that went directly to President Trump's involvement. That had not been confirmed either way, but it sure as heck sounded controversial. And then all of a sudden we're at war in Iran. It was a wag the dog moment in all likelihood, and it's probably going to get worse.
And it was a conversation that I remember hearing Ted Lieu start 2 weeks ago about Trump and underage girls and assaulting them. And it started bubbling up. And to your point, it was at the tipping point, and then here we have it. So now we're back at ground zero. I know Lauren Underwood, she posted a video yesterday that she spent her 3 hours and she talked about there were signs all over the wall saying you are under surveillance. She talked about emails between Gazelle and Melania Trump. And so these stories are going to come out. But the scary part, when you think about it now, what won't he do for us not to talk about it? That's the scary part.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is scary. You got a doddering 80-year-old that has some lingering health problem that hasn't been clarified, who's mumbling through press conferences and then has his hands near the nuclear codes, and then now has got us in yet another situation where he's attacking another country. Venezuela, now it's Iran, next week will be somebody else. Now they're rumoring about Cuba. It's never ending, and it's because he's a complete psychotic narcissist who needs attention all the time. And you see what happens when this happens. They do a conflict, and it's wall-to-wall coverage of everyone talking about everything except the problems in the United States.
Right. And it's, he has scab. They have pictures now. TMZ posted a picture with a big scab behind his ear. I mean, there's so much. And to your point, the missiles might not make it over here, but sleeper cells may already be here. And we've heard Donald Trump say things like, well, there are going to be casualties. People are going to have to die. And that's another thing that frightens me, is that with war, there are casualties. And so American people may die because on our soil, because of his actions and how he has no regard of lives in other foreign countries.
Yeah, and this is the second time now we've dislodged somebody else's leader. Now we've killed somebody else's leader. And by the way, we killed a former leader of Iran as well in that attack. And then we expect them to have no reaction to that. Are you kidding me? If somebody did that to our country, we're going to have a reaction to that. There's just this attitude. They just feel like they have the right to do anything, anytime, any place. It's not that anybody liked the leadership of Iran, but you have to understand that there's going to be consequences a lot of times for these actions.
And then he's saying now that he doesn't want the Iran team to play in the World Cup. I mean, it's just this whole white supremacy ideology that they have, with this entitlement that they could just do anything to people of color because they're white and they can. It's just mind-boggling to me sometimes.
I think actually the entire lesson and purpose of the Trump administration is exactly that mission, that we can do whatever we want to whoever we want. We have the privilege to do that. We don't care about anybody else's feelings. And we're proving to you once again that we're in charge. We make the decisions, and that's what it is. And everybody else is an imposter. Everybody else is a person that just doesn't matter. And we're going to prove once again and again, that you don't matter by taking history down. And I love the judge's move in Philly there of saying, you're going to put that back up now. There's a court order to put the history back up. But the Trump administration is very insecure, very insular, very easily threatened by everything and everybody. And the question is, what is the answer to that moving forward in 2028, obviously in 2026, but 2028, what is the 2019 project for this situation? What is the answer for this? And these people are unbelievable. They're embezzling money to their friends through government contracts into the billions, right?
Yes.
And they've got other people's kids dying and fighting in some war that nobody can explain, while their kids do none of that. I mean, Elon Musk is sitting here with 20 kids. First of all, I don't even know why Elon Musk is here. Go back to South Africa. Of course, if he did that, he'd get his ass kicked, because nobody's playing his game in South Africa. Nobody. That's why he's here in the first place. He's got 20 kids, none of whom appear to be in the military. Same with Donald Trump. So all the baby mamas that have had kids with Donald Trump, none of them has one that has served in the American military. And now you're getting other people's kids. It was a 20-year-old that died over the weekend for this decision that they made, in Iran. So, they get other people's kids killed. They steal American tax money and they hide the Epstein files. Those are their big projects right now in the Trump administration.
Right. And let's not forget somebody that is really flying under the radar, that is probably in the middle of all of this, Jared Kushner. He talks to Netanyahu probably more than Trump. And he has his hand on the pulse because he wants all this real estate from Saudi Arabia to Iran to the Gaza Strip. I mean, and so to your point, all of this that's happening in the White House, we can't even get our hands on one thing because while it's the Epstein files, Jared Kushner is running amok.
Well, there's really only a few things they're focused on. It's really just money covering up for pedophiles. It's really actually just money and covering up for pedophiles. And of course, killing people in foreign countries. I mean, those are three things. Those are the three things of the Trump administration. The money piece is all over everything that they do. That's always there. They are moving massive amounts of money to their billionaire friends. And what I want to know in this is, we all know, everybody knows what they're doing. We can complain about the problem all day long. The question is, what is someone going to do about that? And what that someone is in the form of the Democratic Party. And what is their leadership going to do about this? Should they take power? Is the question.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Where are they? We're in March. We're in a midterm. We just laid out in the past 15 minutes, tons of things that they could be attacking and using to motivate their base, the American people, Democrats, and they're not doing anything. We're not really getting no text messages, no TV ads, national campaign ad buys of all the things that we just listed. Nothing. I mean, what are they waiting for?
I think that from the standpoint of articulating what the problem is, the leadership on the House side, I mean, you have to remember there is no, the leader of the Democratic Party, of course, was dislodged. That was, of course, Joe Biden. They have no leader other than the congressional leadership and a few governors, thank goodness, that speak up, Governor Pritzker and Governor Newsom. And then that's pretty much it.
Westmore? You left Westmore out of that.
Westmore speaks up, I think, less than Governor Pritzker and Governor Newsom. And I think also the fact that Westmore keeps saying he's not running for president, frankly, is problematic. He should be saying he's running for president. I mean, I don't know why he's not saying he's not. Why is he saying he's not running for president? I mean, I know he's got a race coming up in Maryland. I totally get he probably doesn't want to put the cart before the horse, but certainly Gavin Newsom is running for president in 2028. That is just, I mean, he doesn't have to say it. He's running for president in 2028. So that puts Newsom in a different position. And I suspect Pritzker's going to do something as well. And plus Pritzker's a billionaire. The point is, this is the time to step up and stop fooling around and stop, acting as if there's some other person that's going to show up. There isn't any other person that's going to show up. These are the people at the table. And again, back to Texas for 1 second. We do learn last night that the Democratic Party, from a stylistic standpoint, they love these, soft, we'll have a respectable guy come up and they'll talk about Jesus and talk about he wants to talk to white supremacists and try to sway them over and this and that. And at some point, the Democratic Party has to learn to punch somebody in the figurative face. They have to learn how to do that politically. They've yet to learn that. We learned it again last night. And that Gary Chambers commentary about what this is exactly what this is. These white Democrats are uncomfortable with somebody who in their mind appears to be too, quote, ghetto. That's what it is. And you put misogyny in there as well, because I think if this was a man, it would play much differently. And you get what you got last night. Now, if Tallarico wins, hey, I'll shut my mouth. But this plays out very Beto O'Rourke to me.
I don't think, and I don't think it matters whether he wins or loses. That it's going to be the same old, and I think that's what we're tired of. The same old, Tallarico going to the Senate. I mean, what does that really do for the base? Nothing.
I think it matters. I do think it matters. I think he's a good candidate, but she's a different type of thing at a time when you need somebody very aggressive.
That's my point. He's going to go in and try to keep the decorum. he's going to go in and he's not going to I don't see him giving us what Jasmine Crockett gives us in a committee hearing. I don't.
That ain't happening. That ain't happening.
It's not.
That
We
ain't
need
happening.
that. We need that.
Right. Yeah. One good thing about him, though, he does recognize the billionaire piece, and that was something that Kamala Harris brought up during the campaign, and her brother-in-law told her to shut up about it because her brother-in-law works at Uber. So, hey, don't criticize billionaires. It was ridiculous. And of course, what ends up happening is, in fact, we have a bunch of white supremacist billionaires stealing all the money, stealing tax money, stealing our Social Security data. Right? Anybody pay a price for that? Stealing the Social Security data and then defunding everything Black as a matter of policy. They set up a permission structure to defund everything Black. And then that's what you told Kamala Harris to shut up about? Are you kidding me? So that should have never happened. Again, Democrats need to get real. They need to get real about what this is really about. This is not a blip on the screen. These people are in the background trying to decide the next 50 years.
Right. And so it's like everybody keeps saying, where's your project 2026? Where's your project 2028?
Right.
They've been asking for that. And the Democrats are just silent.
Yeah. Well, funny thing, that kid, not Harry Sisson, but the other one that's on CNN, that he's 23 years old, Adam Mockler, says that he's building a project 2029. So here you have a 23-year-old who comes out and says, and frankly, he's smart. He's really good. He'll probably do a better job than any of the establishment players that we're watching who are in office. So good for him. But somebody's got to announce it because there's got to be a plan here.
Somebody's got to announce.
Yeah. Somebody's got to say there's a plan to go after these people after they get back in power. Should they get back in power? This is why the Republicans are playing around with the idea of, quote, nationalizing the elections and stealing the ballots from 2020 in Fulton County, Georgia. They're doing that because they know they're about to lose and lose big. That's why they're doing it.
And so, paying attention to and I personally think, this is opinion now, I personally think they have learned how to cheat better. It's, so it's like a soft cheat. It's not as bold as the first time around when Trump ran against Hillary. It's more of a soft, quiet cheat. I mean, Elon Musk said it several times when him and Trump were all good when he was in the Oval Office. And when you think about who owns these ballot machines now, I mean, it's really some scandal, Olivia Pope type stuff going on in that White House. So I think all of those factors we should be cautious about. Patricia Jackson says Wes Moore doesn't need to run. Keep doing your job where you are. Nancy Wall says you have to make them have something to fight for. You brought up Kamala Harris. So what are your thoughts about her? You talked about the governors running for president. What do you think about her? She's saying that she's still on the fence. She doesn't know. What's your thoughts?
I got to be candid. The way this country is orientated right now, the way that Donald Trump has brought hard back into the culture, racism, the style of which is reflective of the 1940s and 50s. There's some reminiscent historic activity that we haven't seen since the end of the Civil War. I think the Democrats need to run two white males. I think they need to run two white males. And one of them is probably Gavin Newsom. The other might be Bashir, the governor of Kentucky. I think if you run a woman again, we are going to see the same misogynist result that we saw before. There was absolutely no reason for Hillary Clinton to lose back in 2016. She had a better resume than Donald Trump. She was clearly a serious person running and lost. How did that happen? And now the Vice President Harris situation is not really easy to judge at all because she was put in a ridiculous situation, a 107-day campaign that you didn't know you were going to run because the Democratic Party and somebody's wife, Jill Biden, couldn't figure out that this guy into his 80s could not pull this thing off. That's what it was. And all these people, Anita Dunn and Jen O'Malley Dillon, couldn't figure out that Joe Biden could not run. That was the bottom line. It was a massive, massive mistake by Team Biden. Massive mistake. And so judging the Harris campaign of 2024 is all but impossible because she was put into a position that has never happened, not even close in American history ever before. So she should run if she wants to run. But personally, I think the Democrats need to get real about the fact that they ran two women against a lunatic from Queens, New York, and they lost. They lost both times, two overly qualified women, I would argue, and from big states, New York and California. I mean, the whole thing on paper should have worked, and it did not. and they have to face that fact. And quite frankly, I think they should run 2 white men.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And so with that being said, maybe that's why Westmore is saying he's not running, because he feels the same way.
True.
And then Patricia Jackson says reparations won't be a topic with this much hate, so we might as well drop that. I disagree with that, because you can handle that on the state level. And I think you see that happening in California. You see that happening in cities across the country as well as states. And so I think it's important to still keep that conversation of reparations going, even if it won't be a conversation on a federal level. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I don't know that you need to call it reparations. I mean, are they calling anything when they steal and embezzle money in government contracts and send it to Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and these people? They're not calling it anything. They're just doing it. They're moving money to certain people for demographic and political reasons. There's no reason in this world that the Democratic Party can't do the same thing. But you got to have leadership that asks for that pushes for that. All these white reporters that were suddenly so interested in Washington, D.C. and Eleanor Holmes Norton and what she was doing and whether or not she was retiring. One of the things that Eleanor Holmes Norton concentrated on is government contracts through advertising to Black-owned media. She had a whole big press conference about that. And she was one of the few people in the Black Caucus who was doing that. Would be nice if members of the Congressional Black Caucus, now the biggest in history, over 60 people, focused on who they give contracts to. That's a start. That's a huge start. But all the white reporters who are so deeply interested in DC politics that they never pay any attention to in Chocolate City, who were suddenly interested when they were sticking microphones in her face, Fox News in particular, they weren't really interested in that. They just want to bug somebody black out of power. That's just what it was. That's just what it was. Right. And Eleanor Holmes Norton, by the way, doesn't have a vote and probably has a 10-minute commute. So I'm not sure why any of that mattered, given that she doesn't have a vote. But to get back to the reparations question, nobody's calling what's going on now reparations when they move billions of dollars to a bunch of white supremacists via our tax money. Okay, so I'm not sure. We just have to come up with a craftier plan, it seems to be, on the Democratic side.
So you say terms matter. So maybe we need to think of a more savvy or clever way to talk about reparations than the term.
They need to just move money just like the Republicans move money. And one of the biggest things sitting out there is the black farmers payout that never happened. So the black farmers, I know the Republicans, white Republicans, want to call it reparations. That happened because black farmers could not get loans like white farmers could get loans to do what they were doing and run a business. You pay that out. So, I mean, I don't know why we have to call it anything. You move money just like they move money. The bottom line of it is black Democrats are scared to do it, and white Democrats are generally against it. They don't like, you see this on campaigns. You see this on a smaller level on political campaigns, right? Who gets that money on political campaigns? In places where there's a lot of black voters, that doesn't make any sense. So I think it would be a good idea if black politicians would think about that. Black politicians, meaning the Congressional Black Caucuses in every state, particularly in the South, and the Congressional Black Caucus, when it comes to the question of who they give contracts to. They're so busy wanting to make millionaires out of white consultants. Why can't they do that with all the black consultants that are out there that do GOTV campaigns in black communities and at churches?
Right. I love that. I mean, yeah.
You know what I think is interesting? How it feels like black folks, right? Black lawmakers are now, they're the ones that are supposed to be responsible for all that happens with this party. Like, Democrat now has devolved to mean black lawmaker, right? But, I question, like, what are these white lawmakers doing as well who have significant power, right? Who have had significant power and who have had this significant power for years. You have Jasmine Crockett trying to move her piece to a different, space, a different position on the board. And of course, Republicans been moving like this. So none of us are really surprised that this happened. And I know how hard she took it when Kamala didn't win, but she knew that this was a possibility as well. I'm curious about what would be next for her, because it was a huge gamble for her to move from this position to try to get into another, considering the power that she has in the political space. But, it feels extremely weighty, right? That we only have a handful of people, and they all tend to be Black women who's trying to save America, right? And I'm saying that when we talk about Democrats, you don't really think about the people, the other Democrats who are in power, who have had more power, and who have had relationships across the board, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Schumer. I'm just saying, it's just become a very discouraging environment, and it feels extremely heavy for Black lawmakers in general. And sadly, you know, when we have these conversations about what they're not doing, you know, that's, you know, that becomes, you know, Hakeem's face pops up.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the party picks these candidates. You remember that the Democratic Party selects the Black candidate who ends up popping up in most cases. And people like Gary Chambers and Nina Turner and Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, they have a much harder time. Progressives have a much harder time because the party wants people who are going to do what they are told by the party. And that does not align with what Black communities need oftentimes. It doesn't align with people like Cori Bush, who talked about poverty and affordable housing and homelessness all the time. Like, they don't want to hear that. The party doesn't want to hear that. The party doesn't even have a fix for that. So they tend to pick people who are not, to say it bluntly, pro-Black, who are going to talk about Black communities and say, look, I want these things to change for this community. Those are when those people get in, they get in because they were elected in a very Black district and Black voters put them in, not because the establishment wing of the party put them in. So there's that whole piece. So a Jasmine Crockett is kind of a rarity just on that, and then gets in there and talks populist politics. And you saw what happened with Nina Turner. It was Jim Clyburn that didn't want Nina Turner around. What does that tell you? You got to remember the Black leadership trying to stop a progressive Black person. And then, of course, you had the Israel issue sitting back there. I don't think voters in Black communities really care about that issue that much. But when a particular lobby spends a record amount of money to defeat Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, and make sure they're not in Congress to talk about progressive issues that impact directly Black people, that is problematic. And the fact that the caucus went silent on that, and the Hakeem Jeffries went silent on that, and nobody wants to talk about that, that's problematic. That's hugely problematic. So the thing that everybody has to remember is that it's hard for progressives, white and Black, to get in there, period. But when it comes to our issues, the Democratic Party increasingly, I think, doesn't want to hear about a lot of our issues that are disproportionately impacting our communities. That's an uphill battle in itself.
Well, thanks to, I think it was Dr. Marilyn, and I just checked, Jasmine Crockett has conceded to James Tallarico. And so there you have it. What's next for Jasmine Crockett is the question. And what do you think? She just probably needs to take a break for a while. Well, she still has to finish out her term.
Right. She'll finish out her term in high style. As you will. I mean, it will be now, whether or not, and you got to realize in politics, people get very jealous of other politicians. And she's the type of politician a lot of people be jealous of. They're jealous of her attention. They're jealous of her style that they can't duplicate, and the intelligence and the relaying of facts. But she's got such a huge following now that she's built, the platform that she's built, that she will probably be able to do any of a number of things. But again, this whole thing in Texas was about dislodging Black people from power, and people need to get real about what's about to happen next, because the Supreme Court is likely to dismantle Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and then they're going to go after all the Black lawmakers in the South, including Jim Clyburn, by the way. And so all those seats are going to be dismantled. In all probability, in the same way that these Black seats in Congress were dismantled by the Texas Republicans.
Let's head to Detroit, where the Detroit Free Press reports that a new survey on behalf of the Detroit Regional Chamber shows 0% of support among Black voters for the Black candidate GOP John James. Now, while 81% of the voters surveyed identified as African American, several offered support for former Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan running as an independent. But James is reported as the front runner. He has zero support from Black voters in Detroit.
And there's no reason for him to have any Black support, because he's a front man for white supremacy. And so is that other coon sitting up there, and that's exactly what he in Texas. Dude, what's his name that ran in the runoff, who couldn't say anything negative when we had the video of Barack and Michelle Obama as a... No, I'm talking about the black guy who's in Congress. He dresses really well. He's actually, it's funny. These people, when you talk to them face to face, are not bad people, but come on. The cooning is unbelievable coming out of these guys. You are operating in a world and at a time of white supremacy in front of everybody's face. You are a black Republican in Congress, and you don't say anything about that. You don't say anything. And then the president of the United States puts out a video, a racist video with the first black president and his wife as apes, and you don't say anything about that. You don't open your mouth and say anything. So there's no surprise that John James ain't going to get any black support. He shouldn't get any. Why would he get any black support? For what? No, I mean, nobody's foolish. Nobody's stupid.
Another story that's trending, of course, we're talking about 250 years of America. An Internal National Park Services spreadsheet obtained by Politico reveals that Trump and his administration have flagged over 600 exhibits and panels for potential removal or alteration. Now, the targets include slavery, colonization, and wheelchairs.
What a bunch of idiots. These people are so freaking insecure. You know, well, we're not supposed to ever mention slavery. We're not supposed to ever mention this and that. The insecurity and the racism out of the Trump administration is just absolutely off the chain. The things that they focus on are absolutely off the chain. And, you know, the day will come when he will not be in office. And the question will become, what is the opposition party, the Democratic Party, what are they going to do to correct, fix, bring back everything that he's tried to destroy? And by the way, I haven't seen anything other than the east wing of the White House that he's destroyed that can't be brought back again. And even that could be brought back again. But you notice the unbelievably deep narcissism of the banners on the buildings, and we're putting up pictures of Charlie Kirk. And, you know, what these people understand is that, you know, black people, we've been dealing with these people for 400 years. You're not rocking us off of our thing. I mean, you're not shocking us. We're not sitting at home shocked going, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. We're expecting this. This is what we've lived through. This is what our ancestors lived through. This is what our fathers and mothers lived through. So you're not doing anything. We're just going to take the banner down. We're going to change the name over to Kennedy Center and keep it moving. So I don't understand why they think they're impressing everybody, but, you know, here it is.
I mean, and I think it should be a clear sign. You brought up the West Wing. I mean, what has happened? There's no ballroom yet. I mean, it's just a pile of dirt and lump sitting there. And that should be a sign of, like, that's what your president does. He tears things up and doesn't fix it. Okay. It's just a pile of lump.
Everything is a metaphor of, I can do whatever I want, and I'm shocking you, and I'm getting your attention with the things that I shock you with. He's a baby. He's a child. And there might, in fact, be some issue, some mental issue there. It's really interesting to listen to some of the doctors that come on. Don Lemon has a doctor on that tries to analyze him. Obviously not a doctor to the president of the United States, but somebody who's trying to analyze his behavior. And one of the things that we definitely can see is a huge ton of narcissism. But again, the day is going to come. The term ends, I think, in 900 and not that I'm counting, 995 days, something like that. The day is going to come when he's not going to be in power. And the question has to be answered. What does this America look like after he's gone?
And that's a scary thing because, you know, sometimes you can't put things back in the Pandora's box. And so to your point, whoever comes behind him is going to have a strong, clear message and team to clean all of this up. Like we started the show, we talked about, you know, the redistricting and how, you know, Texas is in limbo when we talk about Black representation. We talked about foreign affairs, where we have countries now that don't even have embassies. I mean, not embassies, but ambassadors. And so there's so many things that are wrong with this country right now that we don't even know about. Okay. It's the things that we don't know that we're slowly finding out. So it is going to take a long overhaul, and it's not going to be overnight. He was able to redo all this in what we're like 13, 14 months into his presidency. And he's done all of these things, the Kennedy Center, putting his name on things. that's going to take a lot of cleanup. It is not going to happen overnight. And we don't know what the state mind of is there going to be a civil war? What is going to happen? Lauren, what are we doing?
I think the stuff, the things that he's done that are just the decorative nonsense is like the Kennedy Center. That's going to be celebratory moments when those words come down, when the letters come down off the building. You're going to have an event around that. Okay. But I think Democrats and Republicans, the left and right, everybody wants the basic things focused on. Mm-hmm. You know, they want the affordable housing piece. They want the affordability piece in general. They want to feel like that they can make ends meet a lot easier and put their kids through school. They want the healthcare piece. And the fact that this president, not even talking about that stuff, much less doing it, they're always dismantling healthcare. They don't give a damn about affordable housing. They don't talk about any of these issues, much less do anything. Everything has become about hiding the pedophilia ring that was going on around Jeffrey Epstein. That's the number one for this administration. You know, taking files out and removing files and redacting files in some warehouse in Winchester. That's become a major obsession. Moving billions of dollars to their racist friends, right? Giving Palantir contracts, giving Elon Musk contracts, handing them government welfare. That's what it's been. Moving billions of dollars to their idiot billionaire friends. That's what this entire project has become. Oh, I forgot the other piece. Taking over the media and trying to control what people are thinking has become a huge piece as well, which is going to happen at CNN, already happened at TikTok, happening at CBS, and they'll probably at some point they'll probably target ABC and NBC as well. But
your algorithm on your social media handles, it's happening on Instagram, it's happening on X, it's happening everywhere.
That's right. Because they're so stupid to think, number one, they can control people's thinking. But Mark Warner, the senator of my state, made a huge mistake, as did Joe Biden, allowing that bill to go through with regard to the ownership of TikTok, because of where that led was right into the hands of these MAGA racists. This idea that, China was spying on us. China was doing the same thing that Meta and Mark Zuckerberg was doing. Right. So I don't understand why TikTok was picked out in particular. But you notice you could blow up, and even now, because they haven't completely changed it yet, even now you can blow up on TikTok so easily. The Chinese were like, okay, whatever. But what they did was they allowed the news from Gaza to get on that platform big time. People wanted to see that news because there's a lot of people interested in that news, no matter what side of that issue you're on. And then, of course, it ends up in the hands of, Trump's friends because we forced the sale of TikTok. There's no reason for that to happen. I don't know why Mark Warner fell for the okie doke, but he did. And that was a massive, massive mistake. The Democrats need to wait. This is Democrats now. I'm not talking about the Republicans. That was Biden and Mark Warner that made that happen. That was a massive, massive mistake. And that was really the beginning of this entire media push.
Right. But I have a question for you, ladies. What about the destabilization of Congress? Mike Johnson just told Congress to stay out of this war, right? So if we're now setting a precedent for what Congress, which is completely against the law, but this is what's happening. So, what does that mean? What does that mean going forward? If we start setting these precedents for that, the roles that these lawmakers play, it'll become meaningless. That's where I think, that's where this is happening.
Well, excuse my language, but Mike Johnson is the bitch of Donald Trump. That's what he is. Okay, he doesn't do nothing that Donald Trump doesn't want him to do. He never has, and he never will. So the answer to that is the midterm elections. The midterm elections is the whole ball game. The Republicans know that. They're starting to talk about nationalizing. We're going to have an executive order to nationalize the elections. Yeah, because you're about to lose and lose huge, and they know that.
He's going to use bigly, as he says.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so this was our first primary yesterday. Some are a little heartbroken. I feel a little bit like how when Kamala lost. I feel that a little bit for Jasmine today. As a Black woman, as somebody that speaks truth to power, it hurts. It's
a little bit different. So with Kamala, the reason it hurts so much is that she's running against a lunatic and a criminal and a guy that likes to cover up pedophile rings. That's basically, and so a corrupt actor who might have a mental issue. that's a little bit different. That hurts worse because you know doggone well that she was a better candidate he was. And, you know, more importantly, she's a logical, normal person, you know. Uh, Despite any politics we may believe in one way or the other, Donald Trump is truly dangerous, as we're finding out on the world stage. In this particular case, Jasmine Crockett was actually running against somebody who's a very good candidate. James Tallarico is actually a very good candidate. I might not like the style. I might like her style better. I might sit here and say that, hey, okay, here we go again with, oh my goodness, Republican light on some of this stuff. I might think he's delusional about his view that we're going to talk to white supremacists, you know, whatever. But he's a good candidate, very good speaker. And really, when you looked at them on policy, Tallarico and Crockett, they were very close together. There wasn't that much of a difference. I mean, it's a Democratic primary. So it became a thing of style. It became a thing of style.
But what I'm saying to the point is, you know, people in Texas knew the candidates, but people in other states on the outside looking in, that's not politically savvy, they just saw a Black woman running against Trump. You know, running against the status quo of the Trump administration, running against Republicans, you know, not so much looking at, you know, her running against Tallarico. It was just she was running at a higher level to resist this Republican Party and this Trump administration. So I'm just saying it from that perspective, you know, it's a little sad because we have the Ayanna Presleys, of course. We know she's going to speak truth to power. We know that sometimes, you know, Maxine Waters is on the front line. She's always on the front line, but, you know, there's a conversation you talked about Eleanor Holmes, you know, that conversation is being had about Maxine Waters. So when you think of somebody that is in the party that is not the status quo, you kind of looked at Jasmine as that voice. And it's just sad to see, you know, that it's eventually going to go away for a while. Not say it won't come back, but
yeah, I mean, a few things. One, Big Cheese in the chat, you're wrong. You're wrong. I mean, if Kamala Harris was male and Hillary Clinton was male, they would have won. This idea that gender doesn't matter in politics, are you kidding me? There's clearly a part of the electorate that will not vote for a woman in a top position. And we've seen that. You see it in the numbers every single time. With regard to Eleanor, with age and Eleanor Holmes Norton and Maxine Waters, it's not the age of the person, it's the person. We have several people who are into their 80s who are quite effective. Maxine Waters is one of them. Nancy Pelosi is another. Bernie Sanders is another. Elizabeth Warren is another. These people are older. I mean, they are older. People are living longer, and we're seeing that. And they're staying in jobs longer.
You didn't say Jim Clyburn. What about, does he fall in that category?
I'm not a huge fan. I want somebody to point out to me what exactly he has done. I know he had 10, 20, 30. I know he means well. I know he was a freedom rider, which was excellent, by the way. I know he's got a great fish fry that helped Joe Biden, which is excellent, by the way. But from a legislative standpoint, I need somebody to explain to me. He is not on the level of somebody like a Congressman Bobby Scott, where we just click off all the legislation and all the money that he's moved to HBCUs, and I can name specific things. Some of that is committee. Some of that is the fact that Clyburn chose to be a leadership person, which when you're a leadership person, you're going to have to do what leadership wants. And that's corporate. Those are corporate decisions, right? So he was in the leadership for a while. And I think that, quite frankly, hurt his career a little bit because you're making leadership decisions that Nancy Pelosi wants you to make and big donors, and not what people in Kingstree, South Carolina. Anybody been to Clyburn's district? I was in Clyburn's district during 2008. And I could not believe the level of poverty, but the South does that to you. I mean, we're talking shanty.
I mean, some of the places in this district, I don't even think they still have internet yet. You know, that was one of the issues. They still don't have internet.
I would not be surprised. The members have a great deal of respect for him. I kind of want to respect the fact that a lot of members of Congress I talk to have a great deal of respect for him. I don't hate the man, but I'm saying if I were to list the things that Maxine Waters has done, the things that Mel Watt did when he was here, the things that Bobby Scott has done, it's a longer list than the Jim Clyburn list. I'm just saying that. I mean, you know, I'm just basing it on just legislation passed. But again, the leadership role is different.
Well, the chat is chatting, and we want to thank for chatting. We want to thank you for coming on. This was very helpful. You are so insightful, and with the politics and, you know, the historical context and just, you know, spitfire of knowledge. So we want to thank you for joining us, and definitely, Greer, we got to have Lauren back, especially for political talks, because you're on the Hill. Tell us about your publication.
My publication is Black Virginia News, cover politics in Virginia, and comes out daily. Put it out this morning already. And of course, I've got the YouTube channel, Lauren Live, which I may or may not do. After doing this, I probably won't, or I might do the Jasmine Crockett thing later in the day. But it's there's a lot going on. This is a historic moment in our country. And it's one of these moments that, unfortunately, we have to live through. I mean, we, as Black people, have had the toughest time of any group in the United States, and that's not even close. And we're having a real moment right here because they're focused on defunding, and they're focused on defunding Black people, and it has a cascading effect in the lives of a lot of Black people when that money is turned off. And now, of course, we have a president who is a full-on racist and white supremacist, along with his staff, Stephen Miller, all the rest. And they are very focused on trying to destroy Black money in particular. And it's just a huge moment in that sense, and so many others.
Well, Lauren will be back with us, y'all. There's Lauren Live. Follow, subscribe, and like.
Claire.
There you have it. And like and subscribe, of course, Black Press USA. We'll be back with more news, views, and opinions tomorrow. Have a good day, y'all.